Hey everyone, welcome to the Bikepack Adventures Podcast. In this episode, I'm doing a Ridecast where I'm going to talk about the Canadian Shield XL, a route I more or less rode in early August this year. And I'm going to kind of lay into all the different aspects about the route. I'm going to go into some depth with my daily rides. And I'm trying something new. I've got a screen share going. I'm casting I'm casting the route and a few pictures to talk through things so you can get a little bit more in-depth understanding of what I went through. So, yeah, let's get rolling with this, and I'll show it up to you here. So here is the Canadian Shield XL, and if I exit the full screen, it is now 1,150 kilometers. I made some changes as I was going through this adventure. It was around 1,200 kilometers before with a little bit more elevation. Now it stands at around 14,000 meters of elevation, but in reality, it's probably closer to like 18,000. So, that's just the reality of mapping softwares and stuff. So I've had feedback. The Canadian Shield bikepacking route, which is 900 kilometers long, it has like 13,500 meters, and on paper it looks like a 3,000 meters less than this one. So you can figure out, add that extra 3,000, 16,500, and there's probably a little bit more on this. So I'm gonna go maybe 17,000 total. It's hard to say until somebody goes and FKTs it and has like full on stats. Anyways, it is 71% unpaved, 29% paved. Now, bear in mind the whole section here as I zoom in from Nominang to Mont Laurier. A lot of it is rail trail that is paved, but I mean, I like it. It's you're not around cars. It's kind of its own little thing, and it's not as easy as you'd think because you're probably already tired by the time you get there. And it's pretty close to 100 or so, no, a little less than 100 kilometers of rail trail, maybe 75. And it's just digs into you. So let's dive down. I'm going to go back to full screen. I will bring up the elevation profile so you can see it if it's necessary. Now the route starts in Wakefield, Quebec. So I've moved it to Wakefield this year from Chelsea, just because Wakefield is a little more iconic with their wooden bridge as opposed to a pub or something in Chelsea, right? So there's not so much of an iconic thing in Chelsea that stands out to everybody, but definitely the wooden bridge in Wakefield is kind of like, it's a great place to start and end a ride. Before I dive into my overall route, I will show you a picture here of my bike and talk about my bike and setup. As you can see, I'm riding a Panorama Taiga. It's a steel mountain bike. On the front, I have some Fox Factory 34 front suspension. Really sweet. Love it a lot. It's been the biggest game changer for me over the last couple of years. I found that my wrists were starting to hurt a bit just from riding a rigid bike. They were taking a beating, and I was starting to get to the point where, I was often uncomfortable with my wrists. Now that's been alleviated a lot. Not perfectly, and I'll get into that later, but definitely on the up and up. I'm also using curved dirt hoops, carbon fiber rims. These take off over a pound on standard rims, so it's pretty significant the amount of weight cut just by going carbon. And they're really nice. I've never had a true one. They hold their shape. I guess they hold them until they break. Currently, my rear wheel has 5 loose spokes, so I'm gonna get my buddy to do a full-on service and retension everything, make sure it's done right, because when they were built, I almost immediately noticed there was a couple loose spokes and tightened them up, but I'm not a wheel builder, so that was a problem waiting to happen. However, the wheels that my buddy Carl built me for my gravel bike 3 years ago have never needed to be tensioned. They've never lost their true. And I take those on some crazy downhills, overriding for sure. All right, what else about the bike? I recently installed electronic shifting, GX Eagle. Now, if you look closely at this picture, you're going to notice that, man, that derailleur looks like it's really, really closed. Yeah, I screwed up. I did not really check the chain length when I switched to derailleurs. They're slightly different, the setups between the old GX, the one I had on there, which was an SLX Shimano, and this GX derailleur. So there was a lot of change slop, but not when I was pedaling, only when I stopped pedaling. So no scratches or anything to the bike. I just had to remove a couple links, and I got that sorted out after this picture was taken. So yeah, really loving electronic shifting. So another problem I commonly or often had with my bikepacking adventures is especially on a mountain bike, because of the thumb shifter and just shifting my thumb all the time. I was getting a really sore grip. So when I would reach down to grab a water bottle, it was always kind of hard. I could feel my grip wasn't super strong, and I never drop a bottle, but it's not, obviously if you're having struggles to grab a water bottle and pull it out of the cage, then there's probably a bigger problem in the works. So now that is alleviated. I am totally sold on electronic shifting. I got this upgrade kit from Dismount Cycles in Toronto. They had a sale on it. It was like $650, which is a lot, but at the same time, compared to the $900 regular price or $950, whatever it is, I was like, now or never, baby. And so I did it. Yeah. And super pleased so far. No complaints. What else about the bike itself? The handlebars, I believe they're Salsa Rustlers. They have a 15-degree sweep back. I think it's about that. And I think, as I was mentioning before, the one last problem I need to cut those handlebars down a little bit, because I feel my handle, if you're watching video, my hands are way overextended, which cranks my wrists just a little bit. And after a while, it gets kind of annoying. So I feel like I got a lot of pressure on the balls of my palms, like where your thumb is, that area. So on the pad, I guess, the pads of your palm. And it's particularly closer to the thumb. And that also causes a little bit of discomfort over the long run in terms of multi-days. So I think I need to cut those down just a bit. What else with the bike setup? I'm using Redshift quick release aero bars. I like these because I had a bar yak system on it, and I did like the bar yak system. But the problem is I often throw on a Mac Ride seat for my daughter to ride in front of me on my mountain bike. And there had been a couple times where we're going down some trails and she hits her face off the aero bars. So I swapped it back to my Redshift quick release ones, because I can just pop them off when I'm not out adventuring like this and use my mountain bike as a mountain bike. And, my daughter has fun and she can sit there and not worry about smashing her face off the aero bar pads. Especially they have the flip up ones, so they kind of stick up higher. In addition to that, I'm now using the Wolf Tooth Mega Fat Paw grips on my handlebars. I had Ergons. I had the BioCork ones, and they were starting to tear just from pressure and maybe the way I hold my hands and stuff. So went back to the Mega Fat Paws, super comfy. The only problem is not the best grip when they're wet. You need to have gloves on for that, because your hands, they're a silicone-based type grip. And when they're wet, they kind of get slippery. So if you're not wearing gloves, not the best. Let's just say that. But I did have gloves with me the whole time. I'm using a Brooks saddle, my B17, trusty, tried and true. I do have a reform saddle here in the garage that I want to form up and put on the bike and test out, but it wasn't ready for this adventure, so I decided not to take it. Obviously, I kind of alluded to maybe packing it in a previous episode with Barry LaChapelle, but that would just be a really, really bad idea, so I didn't do it. And why carry the extra weight for nothing, right? So With regard to bags, on the front, I have the Tailfin 5-liter mini panniers or micro panniers. These are really great. I'm surprised at how much stuff I could fit in them. So I'll just kind of take you through what's in them. On the one on the far side of the bike is where I had clothes. So I had an extra change of cycling clothes. So the way I did it on this trip is I wore 7 mesh chamois underwear kind of things with some outdoor research mountain bike shorts over top, as well as a mountain biking, Canadian Shield mountain biking shirt from, last year or this year. I forget which one at the time. But that was one set. And then the other set was a bib short with a mountain bike shirt from the other Canadian Shield mountain biking shirt. I also brought with me some running shorts for nighttime. So when I'm sleeping, I can just put those on, as well as the Outdoor Vitals sun hoodie. And I almost didn't take this, but it was a very last second decision. And I thought, if there's a lot of sun out there, and I always tend to get burned on my neck because I don't put enough sunscreen. And I brought it, and this thing came in clutch. I wore it way more often than the other jerseys, just to get full protection on my arms and neck. And it also helped keep the deer flies at bay. So that was really, really great as well. In this micro pannier, I had my camping cook stuff. So I did bring cooking gear. Didn't use it all that much, but I figured for the times where I'm going to need it or want it, it was clutch. And I'm not much of a cold soaker for food. I think it's kind of gross, so I like hot food. I had a stove. I had an extra canister only because I had a big one at home. I should have just left it and used the small one I had, but whatever, mistakes. I brought a collapsible cup. I did not need because I brought no coffee stuff, but I only realized it and remembered it after. Inside there, in addition, I had a few other things. I had like a toothbrush, toothpaste, little ablution stuff. I think I had my first aid kit stuffed in there as well. On the handlebars, I did have a restrap feed bag, and I actually kept it empty with the exception of the little mesh pocket on the side. I had a little thing of sunscreen and insect repellent. The reason I kept it empty is just an extra water supply storage spot, because I knew there'd be sections where I'm going really long without water resupply, and also it was really hot out. It was about 40 degrees for the first 3 or 4 days. So, top tube bag. I had power banks and charging stuff, basically, including a little bit of snacks. So I had the light battery because I was using a Montier 6500S or S6500. I forget the order of the numbers. Light, which uses a 10,000 milliamp power bank, which you can also use to charge devices, but I didn't do that. And I also had a 10,000 milliamp power bank that I would use to charge my Garmin or phone or headphones, my Shocks Pro, whatever they're called, headphones. Ear bone conduction headphones. I was using the Wolf Tooth Components dual bottle adapter, so I could have 2 bottles on my frame side by side, because the one problem with this Taiga is that there is a little bit of a lack of bottle space. Part of the reason is to allow for a more adjustable seat post length. But in my ideal world, the triangle there would be a little bit bigger, rather than having, if you can see my cursor, rather than having a straight through to the seat stays, you could have had it, so lowered seat stays, but a higher tube, maybe. Anyways, I'm not a frame designer, but I would have loved to be able to have an extra bottle on the seat post tube, but that wasn't the case. Otherwise, it's great. I still fit 2 bottles with my setup, and I really like it. This bike flies. So yeah, pretty happy. Oh, that also has come standard with a dropper post. So lots of bikes don't come with dropper posts. Took me about a year to get used to a dropper post, and I love it. Now I use it all the time, just continuously. And I heard a lot of people say that once you get used to it, you just won't go back. On the back of the bike, I was using a tail fin rack and AT20 bag, top frame bag, whatever they call it, top bag. I should pull up the official name, but anyways, it's the 20-liter bag that mounts on top of the tail fin rack. I have the one that also comes with the mounting bosses. So on the one side, I stuck an extra water bottle, and on the other, I had a tool keg. So between the tool keg and the 1.8 liter down tube bag, which you can see strapped underneath my down tube, that was with all my tools, spare tubes. I did bring two. I brought one butyl or whatever, like one normal black rubber one, and I brought one of these TPU tubes, and a little repair kit, plug tool, multi-tool, various whatever I needed or thought I would need. In the bag, I packed sleep stuff. So it was my air mattress, bivy bag, sleeping bag. I had a bug net for a head. Anyways, not a full body one. I had a little micro towel. I had my air pillow. And that's where I had the meals, the freeze-dried meals. So I had about 4 meals stuffed in there. There was quite a bit of space. I also had a tripod, a little tiny one, and my bike pump, because I almost forgot the bike pump and didn't think to mount it somewhere. So it just went in the bag last minute. And I pretty much covered it. I think... Oh, I also had a outdoor research waste pack, 5 liters, and that's where I had like lots of my nutrition stuff, supplements, electrolytes, things like that, stuffed in there, as well as an extra power bank, because I didn't know if I'd always be around or whatever, stopping to charge things. I probably didn't need the extra power bank. I was probably really good with 2. But yeah, it was... I feel like the setup was really good, not overly heavy, quite maneuverable. I was mentioning with Barry that I had some problems with chatter on the handlebars when I'm going fast, especially if I try to let go. And I actually just rotated back the mounts, the tail fin mounts that can hook on suspension forks, just a bit to bring the weight of the micro panniers back, and that worked perfectly. I was able to freewheel, no hands, and never had an issue. So yeah, that was my setup. I believe I also had the Redshift shock stop stem. I know, probably a little bit overkill when it comes to that. It's just that it was on the bike. That's the main reason. But also, when one thing I really liked about the shock stop stem is that if the front suspension is locked out because I'm on a gravel road and I hit a whole bunch of washboard or I hit some big rocks and stuff, it never interferes, right? Like, it's instant. It's just and it absorbs it, and I don't have to worry about flipping a lever, reaching down, flipping a lever on the fork, that kind of thing, to have a little bit of absorption. The shock stop stem would do its thing. So for a little weight penalty, which is probably about twice the weight of a normal stem, I had this extra means of bump absorption. And I felt overall it worked really, really well. So yeah, one thing I'll talk more about the tail fin setup a little later, but let's jump back to the map. I did start in Wakefield. And as I mentioned, it was 39 degrees outside that day, and it was a Thursday. Now, unfortunately, because I decided only a few days before that this was my launch day, I wasn't quite ready to go as early in the morning as I would have liked to be normally. Unfortunately, it was really quite late. Jasmine was not in daycare, but whatever it was, I got up and I finished packing my bike. So it wasn't even packed and ready to go yet, but that's just the way my life rolls sometimes. But I was more or less ready. That's a little error there I got to fix. Anyways, I parked at the ski hill, Vorlage, Centre Vorlage in Wakefield, and rode my way down to the wooden bridge, which is the start end point here. And as soon as you cross the bridge, you hang a right and you go around the point. It's really, really nice. Past lots of nice cottages and homes that people live on the river. And then you make your way up Chemin Karen. There's usually 1 or 2 Karens there yelling at you for some random reason. No, just joking. And then you have about 3 kilometers on the main road, which is not ideal, but they have a huge shoulder, so it's really not a problem. And it is quite short. And the reason I did this is just to get us up to Chemin de la Montagne, which will take us north towards the Poggen Dam. So it is a little out and back to the dam, but I really wanted to include it because it's such a beautiful site. Took me it's about 30K, so it took me around 2 hours to get there. I think I left didn't get started till like 11:30 in the morning, and I think I got there, I was probably close to 1:30 or a little bit before that. Wicked hot, but I knew I needed to conserve water. I had 3 bottles. I think I'd probably gone through 1 or just over 1 by then, and had a snack, and then I got going. So leaving the Poggen Dam, as soon as you get down to right around there's a little bridge. As soon as you cross that bridge, it starts to climb. And that climb is something like, it starts at kilometer 30 and it goes for quite a while. So it goes until about kilometer 40. So it's a long climb. It's like 10 kilometers of climbing, gravel roads. And then you start to descend. And actually a part of this section is now paved. There's a good chunk of pavement. So you descend on the paved road, and that's cool. That's fine. And eventually you get to this little, I think they call it the Four Corners in Denholm. I can't zoom in more, can I? Oh, yeah. And there's a little structure here. Right on these corners, there's a big pagoda type thing with some picnic tables under it and garbage cans and stuff. And I just chilled there for a while. I was pretty dead at that point. I felt like, oh my God, what am I up to? Why am I doing this again? And I slept on that picnic table probably for about 40 minutes. I just like laid back, had a nap, and I woke up feeling pretty good. Made my way into Denholm. Right here on the corner of Denholm is their town hall and the fire station. And right in front of the town hall, there's a water spout, so you can fill up your water bottles. And I knew that, so I had timed everything so I would kind of be out of my 3 bottles right when I got there. And right behind the town hall, there's another water spout, and there were some picnic tables, and they were getting ready to sell it for their town celebration. And the guy I was talking to even turned on the sprinklers with the mister for really hot days. And so I got just kind of cool off for a little while. Super nice. By now it was already pushing like, had to be getting close to like 5 p.m. Maybe 4 p.m. And I continued my way into Mont Saint-Marie, which is lots of backcountry roads with a crazy downhill right here as you come into this little village. It's a 1 kilometer downhill with something like 150 meters or more. I forget. And then you just continue on your way until you see a little turnoff. I'm going to zoom in a lot here. Upper Ridgeback Connector. Turn off on the Upper Ridgeback Connector, and then you take the trails down and around Lac Fournier. Super nice. Lots of little switchbacks. Not complicated. The only place that's really complicated is just a little bit at the top. I find it's a little rough and rustic. And so if you're not a really confident mountain biker, you can either do one of 2 things. You could just continue on Upper Ridgeback and skip this whole section. But it's not an overly bad one. It's not too bad. I believe this is more doable. You might just need to hike a bike down a little tiny bit of stuff, and then you'll get to start enjoying some of the trails. And it's a loaded bike, and you're bikepacking, and there's single track. Take your time. Never be afraid or shy to push your bike. Just to give you some insight, last year when Megan and I rode these trails, and she was doing the Canadian Shield 400. There were lots of sections where she pushed her bike down and around some of the switchbacks, particularly, maybe around here. and some of the ones over here, so there's no shame. It's like not everybody's a mountain biker, right? So you do what you got to do to take care of yourself and be comfortable. But if you're really uncomfortable, you can just stay on Upper Ridgeback, cut right through Mont Ste. Marie, and come on up here at the resort. I highly recommend the next set of, actually, let's stop there. So once you get around the lake, there's, it is called, that's not called To the Beach. There it is. I saw the name. Well, it says To the Beach. Oh, my map's wrong. That's why. It's supposed to come up here, Cookies Climb, just for this little section. Why? Because I like single track and trails, and it's quite nice. And I'll have to fix the map on this. I spent 4 hours last night trying to update the maps, but because the route is so large, it crashed twice on me, and so I missed this little section. Cookies Climb, come down to the resort, I call it, but the chalet, and then follow the route up this way to Tower of Power. So this looks like a lot of crazy switchbacks. Takes about 30 minutes to climb. It's quite a lot of climbing all the way up until you hit Radio Tower Road. But it's beautiful. And there's a little pagoda here with a picnic table and a beautiful viewpoint, and it's totally worth it. But once again, if you're not a confident mountain biker, this is a good section to consider skipping, unless you're going for like an FKT or something, and it really matters to you that you hit every inch of the route. If that's the case, then, by all means, ride it, walk it, push it, hike it, whatever you need to do. From there, some single track coming down. I believe it starts with Porter. So they're all beer names, right? Stout, Pilsner, Porter, Growler. And Porter's not too bad. It's probably the easiest of the sections at the top. It's still got a decent little amount of climbing. As you can see, looking at the elevation profile, kilometer 82, you're at the top. It shows you're going down, but if we were to zoom in really tight on that, you would see that there's like lots of little ups and downs as you climb, right? So we'll clear that selection. Lost everything here. Zoom back in. So yeah, Porter's not too bad. It's quite easy. It's it's flowy, but there's lots of little climbs still. And then as you get down Porter, I believe right down here, the bottom of Porter, instead of cutting onto Pilsner, which is like a double black, you jump on the lug tread. It is a black diamond. And as you can see, there are switchbacks. They become a little bit steeper switchbacks, but they're not, mostly of them are really manageable. But once again, for sure, if you're not comfortable, walk these, okay? I was with Megan at this, and she walked a lot of them, and that's quite cool, and she's an amazing racer. So be smart, ride within your comfort zone. And once you get to Chemin du Radar, you take Radar Road all the way down. If you are a mountain biker and you really love this punishment, you can continue straight here, no penalty. So if you're doing an FKT, there's no penalty. And this is Growler, and it takes you onto Growler, which has like some really steep switchbacks, huge curves. I love it. It's super, super fun. And but you need to have some mountain biking skills and be confident in your abilities. Now, I did stash my bags, my rear rack, actually all the bags back here in the woods somewhere. So just to minimize the weight and make the downhill section a little more comfortable. So I had to backtrack a little bit, dig out my bags, put them back on my bike, and then carry on. When I did this ride, I forgot about this section. It was on the 400, it was on the 900, but I hadn't updated it onto 1200. And these trails are super nice. I didn't do them on this ride because I was worried that I would just kind of get lost, and I didn't want to have to be taking out my phone and everything. And so I just kind of skipped it, but whatever. but they're really, really nice. Yeah, they are the easiest of all the single track. I wouldn't even call them single track. I just call it flowy trail. It is a really nice flowy trail that I highly recommend you do. No matter your level of comfort mountain biking, this one is a green circle. You know, it's easy. Where I would say a lot of this around Lac Fournier is kind of blue square, and the whole section up the mountain, I would say, is more of like a black diamond type thing. After you finish that, you come out near the golf course and you cruise down towards Lac Saint-Marie. Just before you get to the bridge, you're going to pass a restaurant called Chez Malo. So this is one of the only stops if you are not going to go into the town. So the town is another couple kilometers to your left. But we are going to be going right. So I stopped at Chez Malo. I had dinner, and it was actually getting late, and decided to camp there. So I talked to the owner, and she was quite cool with it. So I pitched my bivvy in the back somewhere, and that's where I slept for the night. And I got up at because it was so hot, I got up at 5 a.m. and decided to ride to Notre-Dame-de-Laus and get there before it got too hot, because I knew the section would have lots of gravel as well, lots of climbs. And it's about 50K to get to Notre-Dame-de-Laus. And it can be pretty challenging. So Notre-Dame-de-Laus, you head towards Gracefield, but rather than turning left to go to Gracefield, you turn right, which is east. And it's a little mix of pavement and gravel and a huge climb of something like 7 kilometers. And the horseflies were out, or the deer flies were out and harassing me. And it was pretty brutal. But, you make do. Actually, I feel itchy just thinking about all the horsefly bites I had. But, sorry, deer flies. Horseflies are even worse. Notre-Dame-de-Laus is a small little town. There is a corner store, or it's a magasin général, so a general store. There is a restaurant called Chez Julie. So I stopped there, had breakfast. It was 9 a.m. Topped up everything at the general store. I knew this next section would be a huge push through Papineau-Labelle. I wanted to get it done. You can't camp overnight officially. I mean, if you're caught, I think there's a fine. But, if you're going to wild camp, make sure it's real wild. Make sure it's stealthy. Make sure you're not seen. But from Notre-Dame-de-Laus to Papineau-Labelle is about 25 kilometers, I think. 168 from, 20 kilometers. And it used to be that the route went up to trail, I believe it's 8, but there was a huge washout, which is now fixed, but I've since then rerouted onto trail 81. And, now that it's here, it's just staying here. So you get in on trail 81. Papineau-Labelle roads are pretty rough to drive on, but when you're on a bike, they're not nearly as bad because you can flow around a lot of the rocks and stuff. So I do recommend a little bit wider tires, but I've done it on 45s, and I know people that have done it on, 42s, I think. But if you have bigger, you'll definitely be more comfortable. On this ride, I was riding 2.25s, so that's like 55 tires, and it worked quite well. I really enjoyed it. Although I was getting a low flat tire, a little bit of a flat in the back. And I didn't want to stop to pump it up in this area because there's so many deer flies, I would have died. So I just kept riding and hoping for the best. And that's not always the smartest thing, but it was a thing. On this route, I did see a cabin, which belongs to a government trapper, and stopped there and talked to him and his wife. And I went for a swim in the lake they live at, and sat in the shade for a little bit and drank some of my water, ate my lunch. It was perfect. It was such a great thing. I believe it was this lake right here, actually. Lac Binet. See, it says Camp Trapper. There's a trapper camp right there on the route. Eve and, I forgot his wife's name, but I have it written down somewhere. Super nice. And they gave me, there was also some construction they were clearing a lot of trees off the side of the trail to make way for some forestry stuff that was going to happen this winter. So unfortunately, there was like little twigs and stuff everywhere. So you had to be super careful riding so you wouldn't like blow a tire, get a massive like puncture that would not be fixed with plugs. But it went well. Getting up to Trail 8, basically it's a short little stint on Trail 8 until you hit 3. Oh, here's another mistake. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so the route was to go this way. I had to modify on the fly, and it was meant to be fixed yesterday, but I fixed it twice, I think, and then the third time I forgot about it. But this is a cross-country ski trail. It takes you across towards Lac Gagnon. However, they have gone and chopped trees and just leveled this area to the point where I think I was good until about here. And then all of a sudden, it was just beat to living hell. Trees and stuff and big branches. It's like, I mean, you could have navigated it, but I mean, it was no longer going to be a fun thing, and it wasn't even going to be type 3. It was just going to be like, why the hell is this still part of a route? Maybe that'll come back in a couple of years once they finish whatever they're doing here. But in the meantime, I turned around, backtracked to Route 3 and took it all the way down and around, which felt punishing. But, you know, that's the way it goes. So it added like 15 kilometers, I think, or something like that. And which makes for a really long day because I was trying to get out of Papineau-Labelle. And you do come out of Papineau-Labelle for this little tiny section of, oh man, it's short, 220 to 6 kilometers where you're out of Papineau-Labelle. There were some cottages here. I actually found a guy with a compressor, filled up my rear tire, stopped at a park, had a snack, considered snoozing, but then decided I need to keep going. And came back into Papineau-Labelle. This is a really nice section. There's a couple of really tough climbs in it, but it takes you down to, I forget the name of the village, somewhere here. But I probably have to change maps to see it. Notre-Dame de la Merci or something, or Notre-Dame, I forget. I don't think it's that far. Anyways, yeah. It made for 170 kilometer day, which was Notre-Dame des Anges. Notre-Dame des Anges. I got out of there. It was around 8:15 when I arrived at Notre-Dame des Anges, and all these stores were closed. So this was the first time where it was really good that I had food with me and a stove. Right where, near the library here, there's a community center. I think it's right here. And I stopped there. There's some picnic tables. I cooked some food. I had food. They had a tap in the back of the building. I used that to wash my face and neck and arms and, you know, kind of give myself a little bit of a quote unquote bath. And then I realized that where the skating rink is, on the one corner of their building, there's a skate rink change room, and it was unlocked. And there was also a washroom in there, and there was a couch. And so that's actually where I spent my night. I waited till sundown, kind of pushed my bike in there, set everything up to charge, laid everything out to dry, and yeah, had myself a pretty good sleep. Threw my sleeping bag, pillow, and stuff on the couch, and I just slept there. Had no problems. Obviously, this is to be determined. It's not necessarily allowed, but nobody said a thing, and that's just why I did it, and it was comfy, and c'est la vie. Now, if you do it and you get stopped, bear in mind that that's on you, but it was a good spot for a night. Waking up in the morning, once again, same thing, no food situation going on, but I decided to push through and make my way. So this lake, Lac Cameron, if you go to the left side, it's paved more. If you go to the right side, it's not, you know, and I don't feel like it's not like an extra distance for the hell of it. It was a really pretty ride. I enjoyed it. I've done it a few times now. And excuse me. So that's the way it is. Obviously, if you want to take a shortcut, you could go on the left, the west side of the lake. Coming out of there, Lac Cameron, you head up to Lac des Trois Montagnes. It's actually only about half gravel, and then it becomes paved. So, yeah, there's the option. You could cut to the south of the lake if you wanted, or stick to the north. I prefer to ride a bit of gravel, and I felt like there was a bit of traffic that morning, so a lot of people were cutting through to Lac Simon on the south side, and the north was very, very quiet, so it was good, and it's not so long. And then you come out at La Conception, the town. Not a whole lot of options there, but when you get up 10 kilometers later to Le Petit Train du Nord station, La Conception, this is where my route had to change. Oh, my computer's gone weird. All right, here is another really good camp spot. So La Conception station has an old, back in the day of the train, it was kind of one of those stations where they wouldn't stop unless there was somebody standing outside and waving. But there was a little hut there. So it's a 4-sided building with a really big doorway, a couple windows in it, but no windows, so just holes, and then benches, so kind of like a bus shelter. I guess it's a train shelter. And I've slept in here in the winter and in the summer, and it's great. So I slept in it on this trip, but it was after doing a bunch of modifications to the route, which I'll explain later. But yeah, you can just park your bike. I throw the bivy bag down. You could fit a tent if it's not too wide. I think you probably have about 5 feet of width. So bearing that in mind, if not, you could always camp right behind the little hut. Initially, the route from here, from La Conception, was taking the Petit Train du Nord towards La Belle. And then right here near the Iroquois campground, I think, right there, you would take some back roads that would take you into Mont Tremblant National Park. However, there's been a lot of construction on these lakes, Lac Gervais and whatever this one is called, maybe Lac Joly as well, where the route is completely gone. It is just non-existent. It's been chopped to hell. So I backtracked and decided to modify the route on the fly by cycling into Mont Tremblant Village, where I had to get my tire changed anyways. Had a nice coffee and a really good muffin at the Bike Shop Cafe. It was like a raspberry muffin. Phenomenal. So this was day 1, day 2. This is day 3. Actually, I should clarify that. Day 3, instead of continuing onto that section, I had ridden 50 kilometers to get here, 40 to Conception. I rode into La Belle, so making it about a 50-kilometer day, and it was the 3rd day of the heat wave, and I decided that I would take it's not a 0 because I rode, but I'd take the rest of the day off. So I went down, I got a bunch of food, I went down to the river. It was a really hot day. There was tons of people on the river paddleboarding, kayaking, canoeing, playing in the water. Somebody told me how to get down I think it's this one. Yeah, Rue de la Rivière. There's a couple entrances to the river. There's a trail you could actually cycle. I cycled all the way down to the river, and then it was just tons of rocks. And so I washed everything I had. I laid them all out on the rocks to dry. I had a swim. I chilled. I watched a Netflix movie while things were drying, and I just flipped the clothes once in a while to make sure it could dry more faster. I went to La Petite Patate chez Leo for some pizza for lunch / mid-afternoon lunch. And near the Petit Café de Elodie, there's a village relais and lots of picnic tables. I laid out my bivy bag, had a bit of a nap, chilled at a table for a while, met a really cool girl who is a photographer that is helping to redo all these billboards at the Village Relais. So they have a map of the region, and then they have pictures of things you can do. And so that's her job. She's been contracted to go take photography and explore all these areas and to help her do this. So that was really cool. She's got her mountain bike. She has a camper van, like a travel van type thing that's converted. And it's super cool. So we hung out for like an hour and a half before the rain came. And then I made my way back up to the station where I would camp for the night, really. Railway Park. I just pitched my bivvy bag in there somewhere, and it was perfect. The next morning, instead of going back and going north, that's where I got stuck and whatnot. That's when I realized all that. I continued to Conception, back the way I came from, went into Mont Tremblant, had to modify how I rode all these trails, especially in this first part, but I didn't want to cut them out because I like trail riding. It's meant to be more mountainous and mountain biking. Obviously, if this is around kilometer 300 of the route, if you are not a mountain biker and you want an easier ride, you can follow the green trails here. Like, you can kind of follow this. They are called, they have a name too. It's like Route de la Village or something. Let's go back on RideWithGPS. La Villageois. So the villager. And you can kind of cruise along the rivers and do that. Can go all the way into Mont Tremblant where the ski hill is. And then you can do like the loop. So I've kind of incorporated some of that with some single track trails. But if you're not very confident or you're tired of single track already, you can just stick to La Villageois and not do it. So that's always an option. After you cross Devil's River, this is really an out and back. So once again, if you're not a mountain biker and not confident on the mountain bike, it's another thing you can just cut off. There's no need to do it. If you're going for an FKT, you should. You'll have to. But I take you up to, there's a really cool trail network here. And I have it, so it's climbing Marmite and you come down Deer Mountain. So they kind of come close to each other. Super beautiful. As you get down towards Rivière du Diable, there's some swim spots here. So if you're needing a break or want to swim, I believe it's right around there. I saw other people doing it. And then as you get back towards Golfe du Diable, around kilometer 314, excuse me for the coughing, there is an option. I used to have it so that you could take Gia Bleu, but I found that it's not a blue anyways, it's a black diamond, and it's quite tough. It's really rooty. Routes are always really hard when you're bike packing because you got bags and stuff, and they really knock off your center of gravity. And the time I rode it, it was really miserable. I know the second half is more rideable, but at the same time, it was, for the moment I took it back out. I thought it's not really, it's good if it's just a solo ride, you're just riding, but if you're doing a huge adventure, like, it should be rideable in the sense that it's not just bouncing you everywhere and you're having to push over routes for an hour or two. So there's a little bit of crossover with the previous route, and then you can take Gorge. So once again, you have the option. You could stick on Grand Pic if you don't want to, but Gorge it's a little bit challenging, but it's doable. It's rideable. There's some really cool little switchbacks and stuff. Some descents. There's some little jumps and ramps, but you don't have to hit them. They always have a bypass. So I highly recommend you ride the bypass. And right at the junction, there's a refuge Forgette. There's a little cabin. It's got a heater for winter. It's got benches. It gets you out of the sun. And I did take a big break there. Twice, once on the way in, once on the way out. And then you are riding through Mont Bellevue, Lac Chevreuil, this little park. And you're just sticking to the river. Pretty easy. It's not the complicated part. There's lots of trails that are more difficult, but I wanted to keep it easy as you get out. And Chemin Lac Gautier. So this is another place where I had to make a change. This is the the new route is kind of back onto the old route from Lac Supérieur. Currently, at this time when I rode it, I had it coming down to Mont Blanc, down the Petit Train du Nord to Val David, and then climbing up to Entrelacs before going over to Parc Ouago. The problem with this is the reason I decided to change it is because that all worked out really well. But once you go through Parc Ouago, I had it coming back towards Saint-Donat, but that road was awful. It was second or third time I've ridden it, and this was by far the worst, maybe just because of the time of the day too. So many transport trucks, so many big trucks coming through, that it just wasn't fun. The road was really, for a big chunk of it, there was no shoulder. The route I wanted to go through, I realized again it wasn't really passable the way I wanted it to be. So instead of coming back on itself, I decided to change things up a bit and bring the route back the original way to Notre Dame de la Merci, where there is a really good restaurant. I think it's restaurant 451 or something. And then into Parc Ouago, along the forest roads and cross-country ski trails. You can't really go through the hiking trails, which is fine. And crossing this bridge here is really, really cool. Excuse me. And then when you exit out the top, instead of turning left as I had it before, the idea would be to continue straight for 395. It's only about 10K. And then heading north into a different entrance of Mont Tremblant. So the reason I decided to do this is to have a complete traverse of Parc National Mont Tremblant, which I think is really cool. And I have you taking some like cottage roads up Coin Lavane. This could be one of the last resupplies. So you might want to detour here. And then you're into Parc National Mont Tremblant for a little bit of pavement, and then it goes back to gravel. Now, currently, this road is closed from about it's from this section right here. Just, what's the name of this entrance? Oh, there's a Bienvenue Cycliste there. Oh, Provost. So at the Provost entrance to the Mont Tremblant National Park, if you were to go north and then turn onto Route 3 East, that's where it's closed. It's closed because the road had deteriorated so badly, and it wasn't from the storm. It was before that. But I think in the short term, this will be fixed again. They did tell me it's passable by bike. So they said it's passable by bike, and it's just, you're not going to have any service and stuff. So if something happens to you or your bike, you're kind of on your own. But at the moment, this is only on the XL route, this whole section. So I think we're safe for this year, and hopefully it's fixed for next year. And I'll give them a call and I'll confirm on that. Couple of really good things to see here when I zoomed in. Right at the entrance to it's not called Lac Provost. Pembina, that's it. Entrance Pembina. There's a Bienvenue Cycliste. So there's a cycling camp there. So if you have a seasonal membership to all the parks, which costs like $50, you also get a free camp night. It's only like $11 to camp for cyclists. So there's one right here. It's a great spot to get asleep. Actuel Pembina has food and stuff, and they have stuff for sale as well. So it's a good resupply. They also have a water bottle filling station inside right by the bathrooms. Another really great thing. And then as soon as you start heading up, there's this trail called Le Rousseau. It's a climbing trail. So it's, not climbing like hiking climbing. It's a mountain bike climbing trail because there's actually a loop here. But it's really beautiful. Possibly one of the most beautiful little sections on the entire trip. Like really stunning. And rather than le descente, taking the descent on mountain bikes, I have the route taking some gravel roads and stuff and continuing on west. Yeah, really nice. Lots and lots of rest stops and washrooms along the way. So a lot of these little lakes have a trailhead. They have toilets. They have picnic tables. It's really, really, I mean, I'm not going to mark all the POIs. If you miss one, there'll be another one not too long after. So that's really great. And you can basically see when you look at the map, you see like, it looks like there's a place for parking and stuff here, you know. Yeah. Really, really nice. And as you descend towards Lac Monroe, all of a sudden it hits pavement, and it's really, really nice pavement. But I don't keep you on it too long because there's actually a piste cyclable. So there is a cycling trail, a cycling path. You can also stop and check out these waterfalls either before or after. And the cycling trail is awesome. Okay. And so the Rivière du Diable, it enters Lac Monroe, and then I think it exits again further down. And as you get down towards, there's another Bienvenue Cycliste here, welcome cyclist. There's a Discovery Center. I got here, it was like 9 p.m. on day 9 p.m. like day 5. It was cold. Now we went from this heat wave to this temperature drop where even during the day it was kind of cool. I think at this point it was maybe 8 degrees outside, maybe 10 if I'm lucky. And I put on every layer I had, and I had to make a decision. Do I camp and do what I need to do the next morning? Or do I... Oh, actually, I kind of wanted this to go this way. But anyways, I'll fix this. Or do I just exit this park? And because of, you know, the time and stuff, I decided to exit the park. So I took the piste cyclable as far down as I could. Then I took the main road out of Mont Tremblant National Park. This way, all the way down back to Mont Tremblant. And then I continued on to my favorite little place, La Conception, and I slept there in the little cabin. So that's how I ended up sleeping there on this trip. Ideally, the route is like this. As you come around Lac Monroe, it's really, really pretty. It's such a nice ride. This is meant to cut up here just because there's no point going that little extension. But I wanted us to keep going east down this trail until we get to Lac Cachet, and then back down to La Belle. Now, initially, the route was cutting across to La Macaza, but I really love La Belle. It's such a nice city. It's a village, town, whatever you want to call it. It's such a nice town that I thought we should reincorporate it. And mainly because also at this station here, at the old train station, they have a really good restaurant, and I like eating there. So I'm like, oh, if it's my route, I like stopping there for food. Bottomless coffee, the poutine déjeuner, which is a breakfast poutine. If you're not from Quebec, might not know what it is, but it's basically home fries instead of French fries, curd cheese, hollandaise sauce, all the breakfast meats. So you got some bacon and sausage and an egg on top, and it is phenomenal. It is so good. It's such a great meal. So anyways, that's why I reincorporated it. Excuse me. I don't have a way to pause. Oh, there is a pause button. Dang, I could have paused recording for all my coughs. Right around this time, like, I have to say that, you know, I read a lot of people complaining about the tail fin rack breaking on the Tour Divide and stuff. And I was surprised because I've ridden this thing through some serious trails. I mean, obviously, sometimes I took it off the bike, and a lot of times I didn't because there wasn't the option. And, you know, that's hitting like hard rollers and just flying over stuff. And I've had no problems. And I have the alloy one. It's not even the carbon fiber one. And no issues. nothing yet. So fingers crossed. I know there's complaints from people about Tour Divide and, saying it wasn't reliable and stuff, but I found so far it was good. And probably for every person that said that, there's probably quite a few others that rode the same racks without any issues. So hopefully I don't have issues, but if I do, I'll let you know. And any reviews or anything I write, I will update accordingly. But anyways, right around this time, I think it was around start of day 5 where I started to really notice something mentally, not from a wanting to give up point of view, because I was actually happy it wasn't hot anymore, but it was, I was all of a sudden realizing that if you're not racing, it's nice to be with people, but also that I missed my daughter. So a funny psychological thing, a psychology experiment, or I don't know if it's an experiment, but anyways, they say that like fathers and infants, they're a little more less committed. Like a mom's like, Seema would always ask me like, don't you love Jasmine so much? And she was like 6 months old. And I'm like, well, she doesn't really do much. She just lays around and poops and eats and sleeps. And I'm like, so sure. And she'd be like, well, who do you like more, Jasmine or your dog Indigo? I'm like, Indigo. And, and they say that it takes until toddlerhood where these kids all of a sudden, they make that real connection to men, right? And I'm sure this is something to do with like ancient history of man where, kids' mortalities, like moms have to love them because they need to be protected and raised and fed and all this stuff. And because of mortality rates of little kids, as cavemen and whatever, in the Neolithic period or whatever, men are much less concerned, right? They're like, oh, we don't want to fall too much in love with this thing because if it passes away, and what was all that for? But all of a sudden, Jasmine's now 2.5 years old, and I was like, man, I miss her. Like, I missed her so much. I actually reached out to a few guys I know, and it's like, man, guys, what do I do? Like, what do I do? I'm not feeling this ride right now. Like, I want to go home and see my daughter, and I decided to push on all the way. I got up to Mont Laurier. At this point, I was also At this point, the route, I made a change to the route as well, because it used to come, you would come to kilometer 0, then you would backtrack, ride down this highway type thing, which is a pretty busy road, all the way just before Lac des Écorces. And there was a really cool trail that you can see on the map. If you're looking here, it disappears. But, and then it reconnects later, but you got to go through some hydro cut and stuff. And I liked it a lot. However, I didn't like this section on the highway. So I realized that along the river here is a really nice route verte. So it's got like a little bit wider shoulder. It's accommodated for bikes. And then you can cut across this gravel section. So I actually did that, made some slight changes. And I still wanted to keep, what's it called? Chute Saint-Philippe, because it's really beautiful. The ride there is nice. There's this back country type road that goes through past a bunch of like hunting camps and stuff. And it takes you to Chute Saint-Philippe. And from there, unfortunately, just getting out of there, it's quite a bit of pavement, but also it's a really beautiful ride to Mont Saint-Michel, the Canadian version, which is not nearly as nice as the European Mont Saint-Michel. And towards Ferme-Neuve. Ferme-Neuve, if you need to get a resupply, this would be the place to do it, because there's going to be no resupply for quite some time after this. And then you're going to enter Parc Regional Montagne du Diable. And here I have a section of single track, which I skipped on my route because I had decided that after I ride this section all the way to Maniwaki, I was going to cut my ride short and make my way home. But I also wanted to make it all that in one day, so I had to make a few little cuts here and there. I cut out the single track, which I really love, but knowing full well that 14 kilometers of single track is probably almost 2 hours of riding time. And so I made the push. This back road here is a mix of four-wheel drive roads. Some connections are multi-use with ATVs and stuff. And then it takes you out. You get up to Camping Windigo. There's a little waterfall here. It's a really nice camp area. So I highly recommend you check this out if you're in the area. They have paddle boards and kayaks and stuff you can rent to go use on Lac Windigo. Quite beautiful. I stopped there for lunch, did a little bit of charging of some devices like my derailleur battery, because now I'm riding AXS. And then you ride towards La Bascaton Reservoir, which is a huge body of water. I mean, it is massive. Would love to make the route go around it, but that would add like 500 kilometers. No, probably not that much. Coming down, Chemin Nibi is pretty gnarly. I mean, it's all gravel road, but it is very much like forestry type roads. Sometimes can get really rough. So you got to be, keep your head on a swivel, keep your eyes ahead of you, don't get distracted because you could be riding and all of a sudden it gets really quite rough. And you want to make sure you can brake appropriately ahead of time, especially if you're flying, right? Chemin La CIP. I'm not sure what that stands for, but it's something to do forestry and whatnot, or I don't know. Anyways, it descends for like 20 or 30K. You get to Val Limoges. There's a dépanneur here, chance to get some food, snacks, and then you continue on, coming out onto the Trans-Canada route. This is the road I said is quite busy. I might check to see if I can do a different redirect. I might see if this works here, just to minimize how much you're on the 148. But at the moment, it comes this way. And actually, the one problem is when you turn off the Route 148 here, right where this creek is, there's the beavers have really messed it up, man. So there's a section you're riding through. It's not up to your pedals, so you're still dry. But I have noticed that it is significantly worse. It's significantly worse than it was last year. And like 2 years ago, it was almost nothing. So I predict it's going to get worse and worse. You do come out on this trail. I think it's private forest on all sides. And eventually you come out onto another Trans-Canada Trail road, which I don't know how many there are in Quebec. But anyways, and you start hugging the river. And riding along the Gatineau River is always really nice. So it's pretty cool. Right here, kilometer 822-ish, there is a massive wood production plant. It's just mind-boggling how big it is. They have stacks of wood pre-processed, just logs. It feels like they're 5 stories high, but they're probably not that high, but it's huge piles of wood. Anyways, Chemin Grandin is really nice. And then you get back you continue along the river all the way to Maniwaki, basically. And entering Maniwaki, there's lots of food options, lots of water options, lots of sleep options. And then you get onto the Veloroute des Draveurs, which is another rail trail, for a little while. Until, so anyways, what I did at this point is I just stayed on the Veloroute des Draveurs, basically all the way home. Down to Gracefield, down to Casabazua, down to Low. And then I jumped onto Highway 105, which is not the most enjoyable to ride on because it gets quite busy with traffic. Meaning it's not enjoyable at all. But actually, there was very, very few cars. That entire 30-kilometer section I rode on it to Wakefield. So I was quite lucky. Could have been awful. But maybe it was just the time of the night because I finished at 1 a.m. With a 200 and something kilometer day. Yeah, there just was not many vehicles. But normally, for everybody else. And this is a section I really like as well. Leaving the Véloroute des Draveurs, you go down towards les Lacs des Cèdres, so the Petit and the Grand Lac. And here I had a hiking trail incorporated into it, but even last year, it was pretty rough and pretty hard with some fallen trees and stuff. After the massive storm this year, I decided just to remove it from the route because I think that this is not a hiking trail that gets taken care of very well. And I feel like it is probably kind of impassable after the massive storm because lots of trees and stuff were knocked down all over the place, lots of damage to trails and roads. And I'm just not going to leave it in there just because, right? I did leave this little section in because it's quite nice. You come up here and there's a little bit of a trail and just like some nice meandering through some of the cottage areas. But I did make another little change rather than go up and down like this, up and down. And, I decided to just cut things straight through a couple times. And we get right towards Zec. I don't know the name of this Zec. Zec Pontiac, or I think it's Zec Pontiac. But anyways, good thing about the Zecs, you're right at the gate of it, basically, is that you can camp for free inside a Zec. So, you can wild camp anywhere in a Zec. And so that's a good place. If you need it's a little bit further, Owl Station. So you can wild camp and stuff. Tibetan Pirate Falls are nearby. If you want to go out of your way, there's also an auberge there. Anyways, from kilometer 886, you are making your way down to Lac Cayamont. Now, this gravel road is flowy. It's nice. It's 86 to 9. It's a little bit less than 20 kilometers till you get to Lac Cayamont. There is a little town type thing, and because it's quite the popular lake. If you're there during the daytime, there's a grocery store, there's a restaurant, there's a lakeside therapy with beds. I don't know. It looks like is it a hotel or not? I'm not sure, but there is some resupply. If not, you're going to have to push all the way to Otter Lake before you get that resupply. And from the bottom of Lac Cayamont, that's where it starts to get rough. And there's a real tough section of hike-a-bike, basically unrideable uphill, very carefully rideable downhill. Not super long, but it definitely will take some time. And then it's a little bit rougher, unmaintained winter roads kind of thing until you get out of there. So it's a push. It's a fun ride, but it's a tough ride. I've ridden this multiple times. I love it. I think it's a really great challenge. Otter Lake, lots of resupply, and then you kind of wiggle your way up to a little bit more east of there as you come down. So the goal here was to avoid as much of the busy roads as possible, adding in a bit of gravel, but mainly to avoid the highway type roads. So that's Highway 301. There's a little tiny bit here, but it's very little. It's 372. So it's like 3 kilometers of it as you go past Thornby. And then you're making your way towards Thorn and Rivière-des-Loups. Also doing the same thing, avoiding, there's a lot of thorns, Thornby, Thorn Lake. Anyways, you're going all the way to Rivière-des-Loups before entering the Gatineau Park for the last approximate 100 kilometers or so. A little bit more. Anyways, you enter the Gatineau Park, you exit the Gatineau Park, you get to Saint-François-de-Macham. There are some food options here. You just have to go a little bit off route. Also, Rivière-des-Loups has a corner store just after that little junction. So if you are there during the working hours, you can get some whatever you need. And And then you come down to Trail 56. Trail 56 is a trail that kind of cuts through the Gatineau Park, and super, super nice. I didn't ride any of this time, but yeah, I like the fact that I can kind of show it to you guys on a map. Right now, there's some construction along Lac Philippe, so if you were to come here, there's a redirect that takes you and tells you to go straight all the way to Lac Philippe, where you can then go north and get onto the trail. Okay, but at the moment, everything is closed for this year while they redesign or tear shit apart. I don't know what they're doing. Beautiful ride across the top of Gatineau Park within spitting distance of Wakefield. So if you're hungry, if you need resupply and whatnot, if you come out to the P17 parking lot, you're not too far from the roundabout, Tim Hortons, Giant Tiger, Subway. Just slightly down the hill, there's why doesn't it show up here? I have to zoom in. It doesn't show up, but there's a spring. Oh, there, La Source, Wakefield Spring. So there's fresh water, as good a water as you can get. And then you can just kind of backtrack and come back onto your route. Winding down past Harrington Lake, Lac Meech, Trail 34, super fun ride. Along the lake, there's a beach here right on the end, O'Brien Beach. If you have time and you want a good swim, you could just bring your bikes around. Actually, you can take them right down the trail there, onto the beach, set up, and have a good time. And then you head west along the road, and then you have a big climb up to the ridge, basically, of the Gatineau Park, of the escarpment. Totally rideable, but on a loaded bike, if you're tired, it's kind of hard. Depending if you're doing the 400 or the 900 or the 1150 XL version of the route. And this is all like really unchanged from several years now. So Champlain Lookout, Belvedere Huron, and then back onto Trail 1, I believe it's called. Yeah, Trail 1. I incorporated a lot more trails than some other routes. Watford's Lookout is really cool. Careful, there's a really big downhill there to get to it. And then another little switchback takes you to Kingsmere. Kingsmere is really nice if you got time and you're not in a hurry. Go check it out. It's like Mackenzie King used to live here, and this was his like estate in the summer and stuff. And he was quite the woodsman and farmer and stuff. And then it's basically there's a big loop here. If you're pressed for time or you're really not enjoying single track, then I would skip this loop. You could just turn north and jump on Brazilian. It's not too complicated going down that section. Otherwise, it's lots of little single track. I don't think any of it's too complicated, but it can be a little bit challenging. And same here. There's a little bit of in the mines area, so it's mine trails, the 40s, whatever they are. Not too hard, but same thing. Like if it's not your cup of tea, you can just redirect north, come into Old Chelsea, have some food, enjoy the break. La Cigale ice cream shop, super popular, expensive, but good. Bistro Manchester, another option here on the map, as you see, right on the corner of 105. They make really good puts-ins with all kinds of different flavored ones, like dynamite and Mexican, whatever, this and that, spicy Thai, things like that. And then you're getting on the rail trail. Now, it's not an all-the-way rail trail. It's up to Chemin Carmen, just as you're about to enter Wakefield. And there's one last section of single track. And this is also another section I would recommend if you are not mountain bike oriented, or you're just really sick of trails by then and you're like, Chris, I hate it. I'm so tired. You could just continue north on the rail trail / Chemin de Rivière all the way to Wakefield and be done. You're almost there. The wooden bridge. If you're trying to get it all done, you're almost done. You got like an hour from being finished, an hour of trail riding, and there's some really nice parts to it too. There's a couple of descents and climbs that are challenging that might require you to push, but I really like this section. It's one of my, I mean, there's a lot of my favorites, but it's really nice. It's fun. There's some little wooden bridges. There's, lots of good stuff. Anyway, so that is the route. That is kind of like what I rode, with a little bit of deviation to explain things I didn't ride. Hopefully, I hope you guys appreciate this video. All in all, I guess the biggest thing is, some people were asking me if I'm planning to do a grand depart this year. Obviously, September's right here. No, I realized I was just too tired this year. With the summit and stuff in the spring, it's just a lot to do. It's months and months and months of preparation for the summit. And then my summer comes, and I thought I would be ready to host a grand depart. But I just decided that I'm not. Mentally, physically, I'm tired, and I got to get back to school next week. And I decided for this year I'm not going to, and I'm going to reevaluate how I do it. I do want to do one next year. It's just a matter of how and when. I'm considering a few things, swinging the idea past some friends, get their input and thoughts, and hopefully we can do something. The XL, I look at it as a growing thing, so not to mean it gets hugely bigger, but it might deviate more from what the Canadian Shield bikepacking route, the 900 kilometer, the standard one, entails. I might actually take it up through a ZEC up here in the north, from Mont Tremblant, rather than 100 kilometers of rail trail, just add a little bit of more remoteness and difficulty. But I'm only going to do it if it makes sense to do it. So I want to look at it. I need to get out there and ride. And because it's quite far from home, it's not something I can do easily just any time, right? So it definitely takes lots of planning and time. So hope you enjoyed. All in all, I had a great time. I mean, obviously I missed my daughter at some points, and that is just, that was my first big bike ride since she's now a toddler, and to see her on the phone, video calling me and wanting to see me and wanting me to play with her and stuff. It was, mentally I was just getting drained. So it's definitely another challenge, another layer to the onion that is life that I have to figure out to keep bikepacking and stuff. But I do see me doing more trips as a family. I got my wife an e-bike recently, so that and it's got a good range on it, so she can come on rides. Obviously not something as remote as this route, because I want her to be able to recharge and whatnot. But I definitely see us being able to do some pretty cool little adventures as a family. So hope you enjoyed. That went 83 minutes, so almost an hour and a half. If you bared through this whole thing, thank you so much. If you have questions, comments, queries, please reach out. And this is one of the ones I think watching the video might make more sense, but maybe not. Maybe I did a good enough job explaining without you being able to see a map to be able to follow along my random thought process over the podcast. So have a great day. Enjoy. Talk soon. Bye-bye.